You know, I should probably stop ending the Friday videos saying, all right, I'll see you on Monday. I thought I wasn't going to do a video for Saturday, but I got canceled on. Once, you know, 100% of people don't follow through with their plans. Plans currently in 2022, they have a 100% failure rate. I don't know anybody who's had a plan that actually happened in years now. And that's why I'm here with you on a Saturday to give you some NHL bets. Did you see some of those unders last night? Did you see some of those? Hope you got used to those because we got a couple of more coming today. And you know, I don't want to fall into that early trap of taking too many unders because it is the regular season and there are chances for things to go wild. But you know, sometimes I can't help myself. Maybe at the end I'll mention the ones that I think will go over, but I don't have the balls to actually come out here and say. One thing that I do have the balls to tell you is you don't need any balls. 0 balls it requires to go to BetMGM and place a $10 money line wager on an NBA team. And then if either team hits a three-pointer in that game, BetMGM's going to credit you with a free $200 in bet credits if either team hits a 3 in that game. Who are the Knicks playing? Well, if you bet $10 on the Knicks and a team hits a three-pointer, you get $200 in bet credits that you can use on anything you want out there. Now, just a personal suggestion, when I get those free bet credits, I know I tell you guys, stop betting parlays, stop betting those things, but if you're really only getting a bet credit that disappears after the bet, you probably want to, I don't know if they want me to tell you this, but you probably want to take shots on things that have bigger payouts. Because it's not like you're wagering that 50 bet credit and getting it back with your winnings, you're just getting the winnings back, so you want the payouts to be rather big, and I don't know why I'm doing that to myself because now I feel like I have to give you guys some picks that have decent plus money. Ah, damn it. All right, I'll start with some of that. Looking at the games for tomorrow, I guess let me start. I'm going to give you 2 plus money plays that I'll try to get out of the way here. So we're starting with the San Jose Sharks plus 1.5 and then under 6.5 total. These Tampa Bay Lightning straight up are having a difficult time scoring. They are. Every single game. Unless that first line comes through for them, they are having a difficult time scoring goals. What did they score against the Kings? Was it 1 goal? Then the very next night against a team that everybody's mopping up, they barely wiggled in 3 and then I think got an empty netter against the Ducks. So now they're playing the Sharks. I mean, another bad team. But at this point, the way the Lightning are playing, they're just not scoring a plethora of goals. And to me, it makes sense. Like I said, you chop all those offensive parts off the team. They are so heavily reliant on that power play. And I believe that, you know, if you look at these games, who are they really dominating out there? It's just not happening a lot. And I'm going to take the San Jose Sharks plus 1.5 with the under 6.5, and then I have a second one like that. The other night we took the Blues under, so I'm going to ride it to the end, and they kind of screwed us. However, I'm going to go right back to that. Look at the Blues goal totals. Was it 1, 2, 0, 3? They're just not scoring a lot of goals. Now, who do you have coming in there tomorrow? Montreal. Look at Montreal on the road. First of all, they've lost every single game. You're looking at 0 goals, 1 goal. I think 1 time. Yeah, against Buffalo, they had 3 goals.
Okay. That game's later, right?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah.
I feel disgusting, but
Yeah. I'm
I
trying
had to
to
bet
remember.
Missouri today.
I gotta look at MMA today. I got a lot to do today. It's gonna get
Me too. I'm going to make a candle later.
make a candle. Nice.
I love candles.
Candles are I'll get you a good candle. Gotta
I'll
run
get you a
good candle.
I got this sick spiced apple candle.
Oh yeah.
It's very good. It's festive.
Yankee Candle Factory. It'll get you. All right, Saturday, 11:06. That's got to be College Football Live Before Lock here, presented by No House Advantage. Stokastic, Team Stokastic, we're ready to go. I'm Ben Rasa. That's Matt Gajewski. 13 games on the slate. We're in the thick of the college football season. Week 9 upon us. Not the big can't miss games, but a lot of competitive spreads, some decent totals, and all around just a quality Saturday. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you. You know me, Ben. I'm excited for every Saturday. This is my personal favorite time of the year. We have Maction this week. I wish they would do Maction the entire college football season, but it kind of makes November special. So I'm really excited, not just for this week, but for all the college football we have to come.
27 straight days of football are upon us. That's no joke. No breaks. There will be football every single day. There will be some candle talk. You know how we do it on this show. If you like that, you want to support us, hit the like button. But let's dive into it. I'm not going to waste any more time. We've got Arkansas. We've got Auburn. Spread has been bouncing around. Arkansas is down to only a 3-point favorite in some spots, 60.5-point total. Ooh, what do we do here? KJ Jefferson and Sanders. It seems on paper that they should have a field day against this Auburn front.
Yeah, a lot of injuries on both sides. On the injury front, Arkansas is expected to get back some of the players in the secondary. Let's emphasize some because they're still going to be down Catalan and some other starters. So I don't think they're making any leaps and bounds. And that's why the total in this game has been taking money. It's kind of bounced around in the low 60s throughout the week. And from a projection standpoint, we have awesome projections on both quarterbacks. Arkansas is actually really fast, 18th in pace. Auburn's no slouch either. They're 58th. Both of these teams are run-based for the most part, but we know they can open it up. And honestly, we have two quarterbacks that are pretty similar. Dual threats with the ability to pass, more so on the Jefferson side. So I'll start there. They're the favorite in this game. Auburn lost a lot of defenders, especially on their defensive line. We'll see who warms up here. But I don't think this defense is quite as strong as it was to begin the year, which should open things up for Jefferson, who's coming off a fantastic game against BYU. Extremely mobile, efficient when he does throw the ball, and he's just too cheap on the slate. We're kicking off with one of the best games to target. So I love Jefferson right away. I think he's cash viable if you want to go that direction. And you can stack him or you can run him naked. Unlike last year when we had Treylon Burks, who was soaking up a 30% target share, nobody on this team's above 22%, and that's highlighted by Jaden Hazelwood, who's playing through a severe shoulder injury. I think he's going to need surgery after the season. He's been in a red non-contact jersey basically the last few weeks in practice, and it's affected his route share. It's come down. His target share has come down, and that's helped Matt Landers. He had 10 targets last week. He has at least 9 targets in 2 of the last 3 games. He's not really priced to play anymore at 4.8K, but that's where I'm going if I'm stacking him. And then in the backfield, they did get a couple guys healthy. Dominique Johnson's come back. They're using AJ Green and Rashad Dubinian a little more as change of pace, but Raheem Sanders still is a monstrous workload. He's averaging 22.5 touches per game, really efficient on the ground. And again, Auburn certainly not scaring you. Because this is a bigger context thing on the slate, there's maybe like 10 just pure bell cow backs on the slate. Raheem Sanders doesn't project in optimals. No fault of his own. I mean, there's just Chase Brown and Ibrahim and Deuce Vaughn priced to play. So if you're looking for a pivot and a solid one at that, Sanders offers it.
Will you play or would you explore playing Jefferson and Sanders together?
I'm trying not to do that just because we have so many good backs. And the total here for their team is 32 points. I would like to see it up around 40 if I'm going to take on that negative correlation.
Before we get to Auburn, I want to give a shout out to Vince, 1979 Gator. Saw right before the show, joined Team Stokastic, and then hits us with a very nice super chat. Much appreciated. Glad a couple weeks ago did some work. Just love to see it. Glad you're back for more. Let's keep it going. We really do appreciate that. On the Auburn side, you know, the reason, and I can speak for you here, we did this on Betting You on the Odd Shopper channel, that we both kind of like Arkansas. It feels like their weakness is in the secondary. Auburn is specifically designed, in my opinion, not to be able to exploit that. What do you anticipate they kind of unveil today, both at quarterback and just in general?
I think it's the Robbie Ashford show, unless he truly just face plants. And this is not the matchup where you'd project that. Arkansas secondary is awful, even if some guys return here. Ashford's as erratic as they come. He has one performance above 200 yards passing, and that was well in the 300s. And that, other than that, he's been held below 200 yards. But again, that's kind of through the rigors of the SEC. So tough schedule for sure. He's really mobile, 310 rushing yards. and he's popping in optimals, which is terrifying, but he is really priced to play here. 5,200 on DraftKings is just super, super cheap for a guy with his skill set in this particular matchup. So I am playing a lot of Robbie Ashford. I feel terrible about it because of the player he is, but man, it's you like just can't project him any lower than we have him, and he projects extremely well. If he gets all the snaps, he's, as long as he doesn't turn into like Bo Nix last year and throw some interceptions, like he's just a solid, rock solid play.
It's clear that you can play him alone, but do you see any merit to pairing him with someone?
I thought about this. If I do, it's probably Coy Moore or Shedrick Jackson below 4K. Coy Moore has 5.5 targets per game in the last 4. The LSU transfers kind of come on a little bit lately. I don't think you need to, though, and I'm trying not to. I would rather just run like some skinny Robbie by himself and then like a Raheem or a KJ on the other side by themselves and try to attack the run games here. Both these teams are bad on run defense, too. Auburn's allowing 5.1 yards per carry. Arkansas 4.7. So we're talking about 2 pitiful run defenses as well.
We had a question from chat from Pierre. Can you get away with an Ashford Tank Bigsby stack on FanDuel? Again, negative correlation, but can you consolidate it there in the running game?
FanDuel has some other egregiously priced players. I don't see the need to get to Ashford. Like if you just play Donaldson on FanDuel, you can basically do whatever you want. So I'm trying to get up to more of the expensive slate breakers like Drake May over there, because we know Drake May's ceiling, but that's kind of how I'm approaching FanDuel. I'd rather play Bigsby by himself on that platform. He's way too cheap on FanDuel. And honestly, he's pretty cheap on DraftKings too. It's just there's a couple other guys we'll talk about in his price range on DraftKings that project a little better. But again, if you're looking for a pivot in that specific range, Bigsby offers tons of efficiency. You just have to go into this game knowing he's somewhat capped in terms of touches because they do use Jarquez Hunter too. But for GPPs, I think he's a pivot off Donaldson and Bucky Irving.
Next game up, we got Oklahoma and Iowa State. Oklahoma's the slightest favorite, 57.5-point total. Not the best year for them in general, but still plenty to talk about here. Where do you see them falling in this slate?
This is kind of a sneaky game to target on this slate. I think it could go a little under the radar. Both these teams pass heavy. Well, Iowa State, I should say, pass heavy. And then what Oklahoma lacks in pass rate, they make up for in pace. They're 5th in pace. So I think this could go over the total. Iowa State plays good defense, but Dylan Gabriel's back. He's just a different kind of animal for them. And as far as pricing goes for Gabriel, these really expensive pocket passers aren't my favorite, but they need to be targeted for tournaments because they do have massive upside. This can be said for Gabriel, Stroud. We know the archetype. If you're playing Gabriel, you're certainly stacking him. Mims coming off a 15 target game, hyper efficient. I love that they're finally consolidating volume to Mims. That needs to persist if they're going to win games down the stretch here. But then we saw a change. They benched Theo Weiss. He didn't play a snap 2 games ago. And then about 30% of the routes last week, they brought Drake Stoops right up to 90%. You can use Drake Stoops as a less than attractive punt play. But honestly, I might just go to the tight end Braden Willis, who's second on the team in targets overall, second on the team in receiving yards. He has 8 carries combined in the last 2 games. He's just 4K. I think those guys open up your Oklahoma stacks because they're so cheap. And the backfield is now looking like a 50-50 timeshare. They're just giving Barnes as many attempts as they're giving Gray. That's a tough situation to navigate. I will stack some Oklahoma, but not the ideal stack, I think. This is GPP territory.
On the other side, you've got Deckers. He's basically neighbors with Ashford and Price. I assume you give the nod for Ashford, but is there merit to maybe pivoting to Deckers and this Iowa State team at home?
Yeah, I think there certainly is. Deckers doesn't offer nearly as much on the ground. He actually doesn't offer anywhere close as much, but he's actually improved as a signal caller throughout the year. And that we probably should have expected that to some point. I've been very critical of him, but he's in his first year starting, averaging 260 yards through the air per game on 37.5 attempts. So volume's been there throughout the whole year, but now his efficiency has started to climb here. Oklahoma's defense certainly doesn't scare you. So Deckers, I think, is an outside consideration for tournaments, especially if you need a 1-for-1 pivot on Ashford. And because they pass so much, there's a lot of value to these pass catchers. Xavier Hutchinson basically backdoors his way to 100 yards every single game because he's averaging 15.3 targets per game over the last 4, which is a 38% target share. He's still not expensive enough. I think you could play him by himself. You could use him in stacks of this game. But not only that, Jalen Noel and Dimitri Stanley are both really involved for their prices. Noel is averaging 7.8 targets per game, and he's 4,600. No, they're not efficient, but that's a ton of volume. Dimitri Stanley's averaging 6 targets per game over his last 4. He's 3,200. He is certainly viable at this price point. I am playing quite a bit of Dimitri Stanley as a price saver when I need to, and he makes lineups that jam the expensive RBs fit like a glove. He's solid. The backfield you can ignore. It's a 4-way timeshare.
Cash viable for Stanley?
Yes.
It does open up a lot. And to me, it seems like a slate that's not, I can say it's devoid of value, but there doesn't scream to me like a million guys around the min or anything that are playable. So he really does open up some salary.
The hard thing with value is you're going to see a couple running backs around 3 to 4K that have decent volume, but there's like 10 just awesome feature backs on this slate. So if you play like a Lawrence Toafili or something like that, that means you're not playing Deuce Vaughn. You're not playing Chase Brown, whoever it may be. So I honestly agree with you. I think I'm going the Stanley route for value rather than punt off one of the elite RBs.
Do you have lineups that have 4 running backs?
No.
Okay. A lot of lineups with 3.
Everyone.
Yeah. Okay. There we are. Here we go. TCU, the wagon, 7-point favorite in Morgantown. This is a weird game. 68.5. Great game for DFS. Obviously, TCU's offense, electric, yards per play, all the metrics, they're like tops in the country. Johnston on the outsides emerged. We knew it was a matter of time. Kendry Miller's unstoppable. West Virginia's secondary is as bad as I've seen, and I've seen a lot of football this year. Where does this TCU offense rank, and how do you get exposure to them today?
Trying to get exposure everywhere. 38 team total, 90 or 69 total overall. 2 fast teams. West Virginia's pass heavy, terrible secondary. Dugan's mobile, 274 yards on the ground this year, cumulatively about 270 as a passer, which is somewhat depressed because they started Chandler Morris to start the year. He's awesome. He's just a little expensive, so it doesn't project quite as well like compared to KJ or Ashford on a pricing perspective. But you can't argue ceiling. Easy to stack into. I think you just go Quentin Johnson and move on. 8.6 targets per game on the year, 11 per game over the last 4. That's where we've really seen him rise into that alpha role. And their wide receiver, too, from a route perspective, is Savion Williams. 70% of the routes last week didn't even see a target. I'll just stack him with Johnson and move on. There's value elsewhere that's better. The backfield is something we should look at, too, though. Kendry Miller is still way too cheap, 6,300 for him. He's coming off a game where he carried the ball 29 times. In blowouts, we see them involve Amari DeMercado, Amani Bailey a little more. When it's close, it is only Kendry Miller. He has a good pass game role. And now that we've seen him crest this 30 touch mark, we know the ceiling is there to rival Ibrahim and Chase Brown. So he is certainly viable.
Do you anticipate getting to Dugan and Kendry Miller together?
No. I'm trying to limit the negative correlation today because the pricing's bad on DraftKings. It's soft. So there's just a lot of really good plays where I don't know if you need to take on the negative correlation.
Anything else from TCU?
No.
Okay. West Virginia, they, despite being underdogs, they have a pretty healthy team total still. It's north of 30. They're at home. JT Daniels, he didn't jump off the page for me, but when you do look at this game, it's not like TCU, as much as I'm a fan of what they do. Their defense has been worn down and exposed in a lot of games. Now their offense brings them back. Do you think Daniels, with his anti-rushing, can get them there? And do you think he's playable today?
No, he's because of the negative rushing. He's too bad. He's averaging about 6.6 yards per attempt on 36 attempts. You can save over $1,000 by playing Ashford and Deckers. Deckers is the same player, but better than Daniels. Daniels just, sorry, USC, Georgia fans, if you're a West Virginia fan, he just sucks. They should probably look at Garrett Green soon, but he throws a lot, so you can get some raw PPR value from the receivers. In the last 4 games, Caden Prather, 9.3 targets, Bryce Ford Wheaton, 8.8. You can save $1,300 by going down to Prather. I think Prather is an awesome play on this slate. I think he's a very good pivot off his teammate, CJ Donaldson. We'll get to him in a second. And he's only 100 more than Sam James. The volume is just so much better for Prather right now. I think he's the best price-adjusted receiver in this offense if you're looking for a pass catcher. And again, I think he's a good pivot off Donaldson, who I guess we could get to now. No Tony Mathis in this game. Justin Johnson is warming up, but he got banged up in their last game too. We don't know how much we see of him. Prior to that nasty concussion he took 4 weeks ago, Donaldson carried the ball 23 times and saw 3 targets. That's 26 attempts. Then the following game got stretchered off, missed their second most recent game, and came back last week to a timeshare, which makes sense. The guy hadn't practiced much over the last 2 weeks before then. without any other options, like I don't know what else West Virginia can do but to give this guy 20 touches. It's not like TCU's defense is their average, I think, maybe slightly below average. So the matchup doesn't scare you. It's really only negative game script for me. And, potential opportunity cost. I think he's the best price adjusted running back on the slate outside of Chase Brown. But I think you can also build without him. If they get down in this game and turn to the pass, maybe you just see like a Deuce Vaughn, Sean Tucker, Chase Brown lineup construction beat out the Donaldson one. So I'm not married to him, but he's a very, very good play.
Are you looking for West Virginia run back if you do stack up TCU?
No, not necessarily, but a lot of them do have that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a good game. I mean, if you look at the sidebar, it is the highest total. I think it's going to be competitive. This is the 1 week I haven't bet TCU. I don't really know what that means. I just didn't get around to doing it. I don't like them hitting the road after. Did you bet them?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
At 7 though, I don't like the hook.
Yeah, I think you could still find 7. I don't. You'll have to check out oddchopper.com for all that, of course, and Oddchopper YouTube. Georgia Tech, you were making fun of them in between talking about quality candles. You were making fun of Georgia Tech before the show. 23-point dogs in Tallahassee, 47.5-point total. Oof, there's no real way they get into this game. Is there anything with their team total? I don't have it in front of me. Is just looking at quick math is around like 10 points, and that can't be good.
No, it's not. I'll keep it quick with them. I would have a lot more interest in Hassan Hall in different game environments. Since they changed coaches, they've been using him as a pure bell cow. If you're looking at our player usage data tool behind the scenes, you might see their most recent game, Hassan Hall, 12 carries, Dante Smith, 9. Almost all of Dante Smith's carries came at the end of that game when Georgia Tech was losing and looked like they were going to lose for sure. So I think Hassan Hall in better game environments is going to be usable, but not today. Going to the Florida State side, they're implied for 35 points, so we need to at least talk about them. I think Travis is kind of a cut behind your KJ Jeffersons, your Max Dugans, and he's at a weird price range of 8,200. Again, I'd rather just go up, play Dugan, or go down and play Jefferson. So I think for tournaments, he's viable because he's very mobile. He's been efficient passing too. He's kind of hard to stack though. Florida State was really banged up at receiver earlier in the year. Now they essentially have everybody healthy. The only player seeing a full route share is Johnny Wilson right now. 8.3 targets per game in the last 4 is awesome. But both Micah Pittman and Ontario Wilson fell below 50% of the routes last week. That's just now they have Malik McClain, Deuce Spann, Kentron Poitier. They're all like chipping away, making it a tough spot to get to. So Wilson's the guide play if you're looking at a receiver. The backfield's going to be interesting to some people. No Trayshawn Ward, so Trey Benson, Lawrence Toafili form a 50-50 timeshare, slightly in favor of Toafili, who's also their pass catcher. He's 3,900, but I don't think he sees more than 20 touches here. And there's a chance they involve some of their real ancillary backs like Rodney Hill if they're just killing Georgia Tech. And then if you play Toafili, that means you're also fading Deuce Vaughn, Sean Tucker, Chase Brown, Kendry Miller, CJ Donaldson. You have to fade a guy to play Toafili, which I don't love because of the opportunity cost.
Yeah, you mentioned it kind of leads in. We just had a question from chat about like cheaper running backs sub 5K. And I think it kind of falls into what you're talking about. There may be some names that are playable down there, but you are omitting one of your running back spots by clicking anybody.
And you can. Toafili, I mean, their team total is massive, but he's just not going to have the same workload as some of these other guys. Like Chase Brown's going to touch the ball 40 times today. 40.
I mean, that guy.
That's not a joke.
Yeah, against Nebraska. So it's really like the equivalent of 80 touches because every touch counts twice. It's just absurd. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. This is a huge spread. You have to assume the majority of the Florida State production or the game production comes from the Florida State side. Last question. If you run Travis, are you just running him alone? I know you talked about how messed up wide receiver can be with them. It seems like it would just be him and hope you tap into the rushing upside. Yeah, and I don't have any Travis. I apparently have 4 lineups with Toafili. I built 53 for your reference. There you go. All right. We're going to get some more games. We got plenty of games. We also have our friends at No House Advantage. They've been with us doing their thing, putting out college football contests against the house. If you haven't been over there, a new platform where you can take advantage of all the content that we have on the site. We've got videos, we've got tools, all to help you make some money. You've got pick'em contests versus other people or against the house. You can download this app. And when you do, why not take the money? We've got some deals. You see it in the description. A first $50 first match deposit bonus with No House Advantage when you use the promo code Stokastic. You see it there, you sign up, you get your money. you can go and you can attack some of these. They've got the Penn State, Ohio State game. We're going to talk about CJ Stroud, no Smith and Jigma again, Singleton, his rushing yards. You can go over 56.5 if you think he has a day. Certainly TCU's on there. I like Kendry Miller's over. He's going to have a day against West Virginia. A lot of opportunities. So again, go to No House Advantage, check out what they're doing. And when you do it, use that promo code, take advantage of the money that we're giving. You see it on the screen. My man Mike behind the glass just threw it up. But we've got a lot to get to here. Here we go. Keeping it rolling. Some of these games are getting shadier by the minute. Notre Dame and Syracuse, 47.5 point total, a pseudo pick'em. Syracuse is back in the dome. I'm not going to go on a rant about the Clemson game. It was what it was. Now Notre Dame comes in. How do you see this game playing out, and who do we want to target?
DraftKings did an excellent job pricing this game. Because these guys are so cheap, you actually have to consider them, which is wild. So I'll go to Notre Dame first. Both these teams, I have questions about ceiling. So if you're playing tournaments, these are plays I might pivot away from just because the total in the game is 47. So what's the real ceiling? The only guy you can play with confidence on Notre Dame is Michael Mayer. He has a 36% target share. And even in Notre Dame's inept offense, he hasn't seen any fewer than 9 targets in the last 4 games. He's rock solid. You can play him really in any format. They benched Audric, his teammate, last week. I believe he has like 3 fumbles in the last 2 games. And then they gave Logan Diggs 28 carries. Holy smokes, that's a huge role. Just like this ping pongs for Notre Dame, you could see Tyree with the workload. Maybe they put his teammate back in the rotation. I have no idea what they're going to do. So it's really volatile, but Diggs maybe for tournaments. Again, if you're playing him, you're fading the elite backs, which I don't particularly like. Then on the Syracuse side, they price Schrader way down. And I understand what's the upside in a game with this total, but he's really mobile. He has 371 rushing yards, and he has at least 12 designed rushing attempts in the last 2 games. When games are competitive, they're running him like a running back. And that sapped a little bit of the value of Sean Tucker, who's clearly not happy with his role. He's taken to social media many times. And even with Schrader kind of dinging him a little bit in that regard, he's still averaging 23.5 touches per game, 100 yards on the ground, and he's their second most targeted receiver. He has a 20% target share, which is like better than almost every single Arkansas pass catcher. Sean Tucker's still awesome, even with Schrader dinging him a little bit. And then Oronde Gadsden, he has a 26% target share, 85 yards per game, 7.8 targets over the last 4. I think all 3 are playable. I would just be careful not to, if you're playing multiple lineups, don't like overload your Syracuse plays just because I think the upside is still a question in the game.
And they're all tournament centric.
Yeah, I'm playing all of them in tournaments. Schrader is semi-cash viable at his price. He's a great job by DraftKings making me at least think about it.
You have a feel on the game?
The line moved so much. It's a pick 'em now I'm seeing. I'm just a coward and didn't bet Notre Dame when they were +3, and now it's moved a lot.
That's because you saw them in person disgrace themselves, so it sticks with you. It does. What can I say? I didn't bet this game. You mentioned Schrader. Yeah, I think you summed it up nicely. And it's interesting when you look at the sidebar, 47.5 points, it's like, okay, just cross this game off. But you mentioned the price points do keep these guys at least in the conversation, which is surprising. I thought this was going to be a straight stay away in all iterations. That doesn't seem to be the case.
No, I saw a Schrader cash viable. He's cash viable. I think I'm going to go elsewhere. Right now, he's not in my cash lineup. I'm still playing around with it, but he's debatable. I mean, his floor is awesome, which is really what you're looking for in cash.
Yeah, I mean, he can move. He not everyone has Clemson's front.
I think he's safer than Ashford. Like, he's just better than Ashford. Ashford's in a way better matchup, and he's more. Maybe they have the same mobility, but
I mean, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. We already talked about this game, but like, how confident are you that Ashford sees all the snaps?
I would put this at like an 75-80% confidence interval. They seem to just hate TJ Finley.
I mean, I'm no fan of Auburn, so like I think they have bad options, bad and then worse, and I would put Ashford at the bad, not the worst. So I think it's going to be him the whole way. Someone like Schrader, they could lose by 90. He's not coming out of the game. Like he's going to get his. If they can keep him upright and he avoids sacks, obviously he's got the dual threat ability.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Ohio State and Penn State. I don't think this is a trap game. They're going into Happy Valley. It's just the firepower on the Ohio State side. They haven't been tested, and I don't think it's because of their opponents. I just don't think they can really be tested until Michigan. 60.5 point total. They don't even use their good players because they don't have to. Like Smith and Jigma, he doesn't even need to play ever. So with him not playing, he hasn't been playing a ton anyway. What is left? How do we tap into this offense that seemingly puts up 50 every week?
Yeah, I'm happy he's ruled out, so I don't have to play him anymore. We just, not to backtrack here, but it looks like Javonte Barnes is not playing today, but Marcus Major's up. So I don't know what they do in the backfield for Oklahoma. It was previously a 50-50 timeshare, but I don't know. Eric Gray kind of sucks. And they've used Marcus Major, at least as a change of pace. They haven't used him like a 50-50 timeshare, but not that anyone was playing Barnes, but maybe this opens up a contrarian Eric Gray. Still don't love it. A lot of opportunity cost, but just wanted to get that out there. All right, back to Ohio State. I'm glad they ruled out Smith and Jigba, so I don't have to consider him anymore. Lost a lot of money playing him last week for his one catch. So that's solid. We now know it's going to be Emeka Ibuka, Marvin Harrison, and Julian Fleming. They don't rotate receivers very much outside of that. All three are too cheap. Ibuka's the best value. And then if you need to play somebody of the cheapest ilk, I think it's Fleming. They also have Cade Stover at the Stone Min, 3.5 targets per game over the last 4. He's not dynamic and he's not going to get you anywhere close to 100 yards. But as we've seen with tight ends for Ohio State previously, occasionally these guys pop up for like multi-touchdown games. So if you're stacking Stroud, I don't hate like tacking on Stover as a second guy if you're using like Ibuka or Harrison, just because you're essentially debating between him and Dimitri Stanley and some of these other guys, which I think is fine. Stroud's playable in tournaments. He kind of has the Dylan Gabriel effect for cash games where he doesn't run enough to be a top value, but he's one of the few guys that could pass for like 500 yards on any given day. So tournaments, I think you can play him, and the stack is live because it's so cheap now. The backfield is a 50-50 timeshare. This is basically a pay up to be contrarian spot. Both backs are extremely explosive and efficient. They just are really hindered by the workload. Their names are Trevion Henderson and Mayan Williams. I have one lineup with Henderson out of 53. So I'm clearly not a spot I'm getting to. It's more the pass catchers for me. My favorite's Ibuka.
Fleming on the year has 17 catches, but 6 of them are touchdowns. That's really absurd.
That'll happen in this offense.
It can. It really can. If you go to Stroud, are you more prone to say, okay, I'm going to need someone on the Penn State side just because to tap into his 400 or 500 yard upside, it's got to at least stay somewhat competent? Or do you think that it doesn't matter with Ohio State because they just can win 50-0, 60-10 style?
Yeah, this team will run up the score. And I don't think they're going to like take the brakes off Stroud. They're trying to get him a Heisman. So I don't expect him to. And like Ohio State's doing weird stuff. If you watch them, I feel like they're experimenting with Stroud. Like some of his turnover worthy plays and stuff, they're like designing really weird stuff with him and like I think challenging the bounds of their offense against like, and it's funny to say this, like even against Iowa, they're like, this game isn't like, there's no question what the outcome's going to be. Like, let's challenge Stroud a little bit. I feel like they're doing that, which is crazy to say.
We'll get to Penn State in a second. I want to jump back.
Can skip them.
SpongeBob, my friend, thank you. Holden Gariner is starting at quarterback for Auburn today. I don't even know who that is.
All right, that's not good.
So what does that do? God, if I can't cash this Arkansas ticket, I just give up. They got creative players. They pulled someone from the stands apparently for Auburn.
I'm going to try to get confirmation on that.
Yeah, confirm that for me. I'll talk a little about Penn State, but
yeah, it's true. Just came through.
That's great. Who is that? The guy is, well, this is what I can tell you. Looking at, he's got a whopping negative 1.4 fantasy points on the year. So, you know, he's legit.
Yeah, I'm sure he's only played in like
it doesn't
cleanup stuff.
What is going on here?
Auburn is in complete disarray. So
how is this line going the other way? I don't understand. God, I'm going to be so tilted later. For that tilt, you can hop in our premium Discord. I'll talk about that in a bit. While you sort that out, I'm going to talk about the Penn State side. Certainly they're at home. They don't have a great team total. I think Clifford's on the outside looking in. I'm not sure that Singleton or Allen will get enough volume, especially when they should be, you know, they're north of a 2-touchdown underdog here. I don't have a ton to say there. I just really wanted to ask you for the most part about the guys on the outside, whether that's Tinsley or Parker Washington. Do you think in a game against Ohio State, these guys are worthwhile targets?
No, this game's the showdown though. So maybe we should touch on it for a second. I'm trying to get to Washington over Tinsley. He's cheaper. Target volume is essentially the same, and he's been more efficient. He's also averaging more targets over the last 4 games. They also have a banged up Keandre Lambert-Smith, which has inserted Harrison Wallace into the lineup. He's the stone min on Showdown. He's usable. I don't really like the running backs here. Penn State cannot, like, I don't know if this is a James Franklin thing or an OC thing, but someone needs to be fired for using Katron Allen in a 50-50 timeshare with Singleton. Singleton's averaging like 3 more yards per carry. Like, it doesn't take a wizard to figure this out.
Bad. Yeah, get him out of there.
At some point, like, he's been successful, but like you can, like, these are clear decisions. Like, there's not even a debate.
It's bad. There's no doubt, but on the slate, like you mentioned, 13 games. The volume is the volume. Also, yeah, Ashford's still taking first team reps for Auburn. I've seen that tweet too. I don't know what's going on. We're just gonna have to keep an eye on it.
I would probably just not play him.
Yeah, I'm more. Anything else from this game, or can we move on to Rutgers?
Let's do it. Let's move on.
All right. Rutgers, it got a little greasy last week. They did end up covering, which was very, very useful. Now they're in Minnesota. It's not the best game, but there are some pieces. It's a 40.5 point total, and Rutgers is a pretty sizable dog, just showing you their team total. Can we get to anything here, or is it best not to mess around?
Their lead back's the stone min, Samuel Brown. He actually has a really good workload recently, but it's the same thing. Do you want to play him instead of Deuce Vaughn? I'll just find ways to be creative and find other ways to go.
No quarterbacks.
No quarterbacks.
No quarterbacks. On the Minnesota side, we know what they want to do. They've been doing it for a long time, and that's run the ball. Ibrahim, 7,300. The workload gets him there. Is that really what we want to focus on in this game?
Yeah, this is the exact opposite of previous slates. People have been jamming Ibrahim at 9K over Chase Brown at like 6K every single week, not realizing Chase Brown's better and has a better workload. But now we've seen Chase Brown come up a little bit, Ibrahim come down. Chase Brown is still very clearly the better play in a vacuum. But now we have a potential pivot here with similar touch upside, maybe a worse game environment overall slightly, but I think he's a solid pivot at this point. You're getting Ibrahim over him in every optimal. So this is a great GPP pivot.
Yeah, I mean, it's someone that has that he can tap into elite workload that most people can't. I assume that Tanner Morgan doesn't pique your interest.
No, I hate him.
Yeah, it's been bad. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. It's a 40.5 point total. Honestly, it seems like the worst game on the slate.
Not even close. It's terrible.
Okay, then we'll just move on. We got plenty of games left. I'm going to talk about some of the things we've got going on in just a little bit, including the money at BetMGM. That's something you don't want to miss. But before I do that, I want to talk about Florida and Georgia. I'm waiting. I'll give people a little peek behind the glass. If this hits 24, I'm going to bet Florida. I put that in the Discord this morning. I'm waiting for 24. I don't know about this team total for Florida. It's only at 17. I think they can score a little bit. I'm not sure what Richardson can give you in the DFS streets, but I want to find out. So let's start with him. With his elite athleticism, is he playable, or is it just stupid to go against Georgia's defense when you don't have to?
I think what's even dumber for this team is here are his designed rush attempts over the last 4 games. 13, 1, 5, and 1.
Yeah, that's bad.
This is another situation where Billy Napier, somebody should be fired for doing this. Like, so obviously you can't play him in DFS because their coach is a moron.
What else can we do?
You have. We shouldn't get into this right now to save time, but my goodness, like, figure it out, Florida.
I hear you. Believe me, I fell into the Florida trap just a couple weeks ago against LSU. I didn't like what they did there, and I'm not a fan of what's going on. I do think there are ways, personnel-wise, that they could cause some problems.
Yeah, like running their quarterback.
You would think. It's certainly not their backfield. I assume their backfield's a complete wash for DFS. Not going to play those guys.
Yep.
Anyone on the outside, Shorter, Henderson, or is it just still not great?
Shorter is the best price adjusted play. I'd rather go elsewhere.
I think I'm with you. It's just, it should be Richardson or pass, but I think overall it is pass. And you just mentioned why, because they're not unlocking his biggest asset, which is his ability to really cause problems on the ground.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Georgia on the other side, they're going to score. They are going to score. Stetson Bennett is priced up as he always is. Is he kind of an against the grain, pay the premium and build a different type of lineup? Or is that just too much allocation for salary?
Yeah, I think he's fine. He's a great tournament play. He's averaging nearly 300 yards per game through the air. Georgia's pass rate is really high right now, and they're just beating up on their opponents. So Stetson's somewhat mobile too. I think people are kind of scarred by that Missouri game where they just couldn't punch it in the end zone, but I think he's live for tournaments. He's kind of in a weird price point. I'd rather play Dugan straight up, but you could get to Stetson in tournaments. He's hard to stack though. I think you're basically like using Bowers or Ladd McConkey, or maybe like a really cheap Marcus Rosemy-Jackson at 3,100, who's kind of stepped up for an injured AD Mitchell.
Anything is guy like Kendall Milton able to garner enough work to be relevant? If he even plays at all, I believe he is banged up. Who do you have in the backfield? I mean, Georgia's backfield has been, a pain point for years. They run like 3 or 4 guys consistently. Does that change here, or is there a spot worth targeting?
I don't think so. I'll say this. It's more attractive than previous years. Kendall Milton's injured. So usually these Georgia backs are like 5K to 7K, and that's the case with Milton, who's gone, at least for now. Kenny McIntosh is 6.8. But with Milton out, like their 3rd and 4th string backs, Daewon Edwards and Branson Robinson are really cheap. They're going to touch the ball today. But again, 13 game slate. How much do we really want to play these guys? I believe this is the showdown in the afternoon, though. So if I'm ranking these guys price adjusted, Edwards would be 1. 2 would be Robinson, just because of their volume for their prices. But McIntosh has the best pass catching role. That's how I kind of would break this down.
Yeah, I mean, again, I tend to agree. They can unlock so many points, but it's hard to see the consolidation. You mentioned Bowers on the outside. Not the most appealing team. And like I said, I'm kind of waiting for plus 24.
Can I say something about Auburn for a sec?
Please.
They have a really good beat reporter, Nathan King. I actually really respect his work, which is saying a lot because I don't like beat reporters in college. I think generally they do a very bad job. He tweeted a couple minutes ago, Robbie Ashford's taking first team warm-up reps, and he has for the past hour. And he also said Holden Greiner, whatever his name is, hasn't taken a single rep with the first team yet. That doesn't make any sense to me. If he's going to start and play, why would he not take any first team reps? Yeah, I will say this. I do think you run the risk of Ashford getting benched at the slightest inkling of negative play, but I think my approach to this is I'm not going to play Ashford in cash. I'm going to reduce my ownership to him in my own lineups, but I'm not going to completely X him.
I think that's smart. And even I'm not saying this is true, but we had a comment in chat that the PA announcer may have announced the wrong QB. Like, I don't really understand what Auburn's doing. Everything on the field is saying that it's all systems go for Ashford.
This is the only information we have. So I think that's how I'm going to treat it unless we get a bombshell in the next 15 minutes.
Really, they flashed it on the video board. Yeah, we're gonna keep an eye on it. We still have 15 minutes left.
Well, that means somebody had to make a graphic for it.
Did they? Yeah, I'm not sure if he means they flashed that they screwed it up or they flashed that it was this new guy.
I don't know. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reduce the Ashford ownership in my lineups.
It's always something. All right.
Makes
the Ducks and Cal, 56-point total. We'll tell the people we're against each other on this game. Strength and honor. I hope it lands on 17. Then we both win. Talk to me about Oregon. Obviously, they're high octane offense. They've looked good. They are on the road here, but what do you expect from them?
Yeah, a fun game overall. Price to play, honestly, too. So let's go with the Oregon side first. They're the favorite. They have a 37.5 team total here. Bo Nix is the most expensive signal caller on the slate. Did you think you'd hear that? It's legitimately Heisman Bo Nix this year. He hits the road. He's been worse on the road, but he's super mobile, and he's averaging 260 passing yards and just 30 attempts. So really solid efficiency. Cal's defense is decent, not great though. The thing is with Nix, it's still a low volume pass attack. So like their leading receiver, Troy Franklin, and they released early Blitnikoff, rankings. Troy Franklin was 5th. He hasn't seen more than 7 targets in any of the last 4 games. So at his price, I just flat out prefer like 7 other guys. You can't really play the cheap guys. They rotate Coda, Hudson, Ferguson. It's a complete rotation. So that's kind of a mess. So honestly, I'm running him naked when I am. The best play in the game is Bucky Irving. So there's rumors that Byron Cardwell is going to transfer. They sort of just removed Jordan James and Sean Dollars from the rotation, leaving really only Bucky Irving and Noah Whittington. And it's kind of like a 70-30 split at this point. Irving had 22 touches last week, and he is running laps efficiency-wise around the other rushers. So this makes a lot of sense for them to move this way. excellent pivot off of Donaldson if you want to do that. But overall, I think you can play them both. He's a good play.
What about Jaden Ott on the other side? Do you think that he can get enough work, or is there anyone on Cal that's worthwhile to target?
I also am not a fan of the Cal coach. So Jaden Ott's a 4-star freshman. He's awesome. He also is running laps efficiency-wise around his teammates, but they do not use him consistently. 1 week, he outtouches Damian Moore 16-2 in terms of carries. The next week, it's 14-10, him slightly ahead of DeCarlos Brooks in a close 7-point game. So I just don't know what the workload is for Jaden Ott, making him really hard to target. But honestly, you can use some of these pass catchers. They're really cheap. Cal has a 58% pass rate. Jeremiah Hunter missed their last game. He tried to go and then exited immediately. I don't think that bodes well for his status here, but if he plays, he's viable. He was their target leader before injury. J. Michael Sturdivant has popped up for 11 and 13 targets in back-to-back weeks. And then Marvin Anderson's their very clear number 3 receiver. He bumps up to number 2 if Hunter misses time. He is 3,500, which is certainly usable on this slate. I'm playing a decent amount of Cal pass catchers here. Oregon's defense sucks, and I'm playing a lot of Irving, so it's a natural sort of I don't know how to call it, like a mini stack. Sorry,
yeah,
I don't
mini
know why
stack.
that slipped my mind. I'm trying to fix this Ashford stuff.
No,
Excuse me,
I hear you. Couple questions. Best cash game wide receiver under 4K. To me, it would be Stanley, would it not?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Stanley at 32. $6,500 flex or less. I mean, Ott is there. Kendry Miller is there. Is there anyone in that range, 6,500 or less, that you think is the guy you'd go to?
Kendry.
Yeah. Always Kendry. All right. Let's keep it moving. We're back to the Big 12. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, 57.5, pseudo pick 'em. You've mentioned Deuce Vaughn a couple times. Before we talk about him, we're going to talk about Oklahoma State. They've been in some big time back and forth games. They're a little banged up. What is left for them, and who do we want to target?
I think Spencer Sanders is okay. He seems to be healthier, which is positive. So I do like Spencer Sanders. And then outside of that, I think his pass catchers are live. We've got a really cheap guy in Stephon Robinson we need to talk about. That comes down to the injury to Braden Johnson ahead of him. We don't know if he plays, so you're just going to have to watch this ahead of time. If he doesn't play, Stephon Robinson would become one of the best plays on the slate. The problem is Dimitri Stanley plays in the early slate. Stephon plays in the late slate, and there's limited pivots for him at the Stoneman. But I don't know if he just doesn't play anyway. 10 targets. I believe he had 90 yards, 15 yards per reception. He was awesome. He's a really high recruit freshman for this team. Stephon Johnson, not Robinson. We're looking at some of the other players. Still trying to fix my lineup, so excuse me. Anyway, he's a good play if we don't have Johnson. If Johnson plays, I'm not sure he's a terrible play anyway. But to rank the rest of the pass catchers, it's Bryson Green 1, Brennan Presley 2, John Paul Richardson 3, and then again, we already broke down Stephon Johnson. He's just different because of his price at the Stoneman.
Kansas State, Deuce Vaughn, they've had some issues. They were running out of quarterbacks against TCU. Adrian Martinez, injury woes. Will Howard was banged up, but he did return to the game. What do you expect from them, and is Deuce Vaughn the only relevant piece?
Deuce Vaughn's the only relevant piece. He has a massive workload, and he's been cannibalized a little bit by Adrian Martinez. I expect with Will Howard, if Will Howard gets the start, Deuce Vaughn's role to rise, and he already has an awesome role. So this is just kind of icing on the cake for him. Certainly cash viable too. Love Deuce Vaughn. Pass catchers is just low volume passing attack. I don't think you're getting there.
Couple games left before we get to it. I do want to talk in the link. Again, when you go to these videos, check out the links below because there's some great offers, including our friends at BetMGM. They have their no-brainer offer. And what that is, you're in a state that has betting and you're looking to add some books and you're looking to add money to your bankroll. These no-brainer offers where they're giving you money or things you want to take advantage of. And this one is you click that link and you sign up at the BetMGM. You deposit $10. You bet an NBA money line, and once a team hits a three-pointer, they give you $200 in the account once that happens. $200 in free bets. You can use that on any sport. You can bring it back to college football. That's what I would do. It is that simple. Over on our Odd Shopper YouTube, of course, we've been talking about this, but we wanted to let everyone know here. You are looking to add money and get an extra couple $100 to have some fun with. This is the way to do it. Link in the description of this, the BetMGM no-brainer. Bet 10 on an NBA money line, win 200 once a team makes a three-pointer. It's as simple as that. Is Ashford out or is that speculation? We have no idea. That's what we're all trying to wait for.
It's speculation.
It is speculation. They announced the other guy. Ashford's taking first team reps. It's very, very confusing. Quick question with B Johnson out, why do you like Stanley over S Johnson for Oklahoma State?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So we had a question with, I'm using abbreviations here because I don't have these first names. Basically with Johnson out, with Braden Johnson out for Oklahoma State, you give the nod to Stanley over S Johnson on Oklahoma State.
Yeah, because he plays earlier.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
he plays at 11 and we know his role. We don't know if Braden Johnson's out and he's in the late slate. So if you lock in Stephon Johnson and Braden Johnson plays, who do you swap to? You're going to have, because he's cheaper, unless you're leaving 500 on the table to get to Marvin Anderson, you're going to have to probably make a gross swap.
Well said. I like the volume for Stanley. I think he's going to have a fine game. This is an interesting one too. 65.5 point total. Wake, they've not taking money. Louisville is. They're still a 3-point favorite. Talk to me about the Wake stack. Where does that rank? And then talk to me about where Malik Cunningham and co are for the Cardinal.
Yeah, this is a fun game. I think Hartman is really interesting in tournaments. They're really volatile right now. They're sensitive to their opponents and their pass rate has ebbed and flowed depending on that. So sometimes Hartman has elite volume, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes they just run the ball and you see 40 carries, which we've seen before. And they're also rotating receivers. Even A.T. Perry's route share is around 70%. It's a far cry from what it was last year. And it makes sense. They're running a ton of plays and they don't need to put A.T. Perry on the field every single play. But it's also affected his target share, just 23.5%. That's way lower than last year when he was around 30. So last week, even 3 targets for Perry, 11 for Donovan Green, 9 for Jamal Banks, 6 for Taylor Moore, and 5 for Blake Whiteheart. It's not going to be like that every week, but there are weeks where it is, and that makes him volatile at his price. If you're stacking the game, I still think it's Hartman to Perry as the preferred stack. All the other guys are a bit too expensive for me. And the running back field, they started involving Quentin Cooley again. It's 2.5 to 3 guys.
Anything else in the spot that you want to talk about before we get to the what do we got? 2 games left? We're fine.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Malik Cunningham's awesome. I think he's a solid pivot. If you're scared of Ashford, you're going to have to make some lineup changes because of the pricing difference, but 503 rushing yards. He struggled a bit as a passer. Wake Forest defense is actually impressed, but this is shootout written all over it. He's gotten the best of Wake Forest a lot in the past. And they get back Amari Huggins-Bruce, who's my favorite guy to stack with. Tyler Hudson has a much better role on the year, but Amari Huggins-Bruce was playing like 30 to 40% of the routes. Since he's jumped up, it's at like 90%, and he's going to play today.
Illinois and Nebraska. We've mentioned Chase Brown and his workload. Clearly, that's going to be the focal point of this game. 50-point total. Illinois is a road favorite. I mean, Chase Brown is good in any format, correct? Ownership's probably the biggest deterrent.
Yep.
Is there anything else from Illinois that you think is worth mentioning?
Pat Bryant's more efficient than Isaiah Williams, but I don't think you play either.
If Nebraska gets in this game, do you think it's offensively? Is it an ugly game? A guy like Trey Palmer, but he's really expensive. He's been having monster games for this team. It's not his fault that they're a dumpster fire. What do you do with Nebraska, or do you not want to talk about them at all, really?
Yeah, he's GPP viable. He has an awesome role, really efficient, 116.5 yards per game. So I think you can use him in tournaments. Anthony Grant, if the game's competitive, is going to see a monstrous workload on the ground, but he's not priced to play. I'd rather just play like Kendry Miller.
Quick question: Wheaton or Franklin?
Who's Franklin? Give me a first name.
I was just hoping you would just. I know
There's
I'm
a lot
terrible
of
with that too.
Franklins.
Mr. Troy Franklin from Oregon.
Oh, I'll play Bryce Ford Wheaton.
Yeah, I would as well. It's pretty close, but that would be that. All right, let's get to this last game. Then if we have 10 seconds, we'll give a spiel. God, I'm so fascinated to see what Auburn does now. Cincinnati and UCF in the bounce house, 55.5 point total. UCF's a 1-point favorite. We have both bet them. I do think they win this game, but let's start with Cincinnati. How do you think they attack UCF today?
They're going to try to throw it. We'll see how that works. And it's the toughest matchup they've played in a while since Arkansas, I think. And they're away, which is problematic, but they throw a ton, 51% pass rate, much different than last year. Ben Bryant's not playable himself because he has negative rushing yards, but they don't have Tyler Scott either, presumably in a boot last week. They did not use Trey Tucker as the alpha, where I was wrong about that. They instead spread it between him, Nick Mardner, and Jaden Thompson. I did run some John Reese Plumlee and use some runbacks with Mardner and Thompson. I don't know if I still have them. They might have been in the Ashford lineups I cut, so I don't know, but I at least had that idea to begin with. And then on the other side, John Reese Plumlee's expensive, but he has 506 rushing yards, that elite dual threat ability. He's actually been really efficient as a passer outside of the turnovers. The turnovers have absolutely killed his season. If he can even get close to remotely cleaning that up, he would be a solid play.
What do you think about Bowser at 65?
I don't think he's playable. They're using RJ Harvey. Isaiah Bowser sucks. It's about time they stop using him. Like, props to Gus Malzahn doing what Penn State and Florida can't figure out. It's use your players that are the most efficient.
Yeah, I mean, in a world where Gus Malzahn is cutting edge, that just shows the state of the coaching in college football. No doubt about it. If you use Plumlee, we know crazy rushing ability. Would you be okay with a receiver, or is it just run him alone and see what you get?
I prefer running him alone. That's because we don't know the status of Javon Baker. Tried to play last week, had to check himself out of the game. He's the wide receiver 1 when healthy. If he's not out there, it drastically affects the volume for other players. O'Keefe and Hudson, they jump up, but if Baker plays, their volume is going to be much lower.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's a little crowded. And like I said, I do like UCF, but I'm not sure it correlates to the best situation when you're looking at these quarterbacks. We had a question about quarterbacks. Do you like anyone below KJ Jefferson in terms of salary saver? Certainly Ashford was that name, and I still think he's got a real chance, but there's just more risk now.
Garrett Schrader.
Oh yeah, Schrader. There you go. Yeah, I mean, it looks like this is for real in Auburn. Very, very wild stuff. All right. Quick question over. Thanks, Pierre. Is JJ McCarthy viable on FanDuel?
I don't think so. Donaldson's so cheap over there. I think you just lock him in, and that gives you an avenue to play like some really good quarterbacks. So I'm trying to play like Drake May and stuff over there.
Do you think that Tillman is going to be on a pitch count, or is he playable in terms of Cedric Tillman for Tennessee?
No idea. They haven't reported that.
Yeah. This is not based off any information besides me just saying things. I think that if the game is even remotely in hand, they err on the side of caution. They're trying to get him reps before Georgia, not beat Kentucky. That's just my opinion. I don't think he goes crazy today. They've been fine without him. Why push it if not? Anything else that we really need to talk about? We had one, Bryson Green or Studevant if Braden Johnson plays.
Sturdivant.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on these news. I think we're in pretty good shape. We got 1 minute left till lock. Any final thoughts for the people? Again, if you want to show support, we do the best we can. We got injuries. We got things flying around. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. It really does go a long way for us. But any final parting words for you?
No, thank you guys for watching. Good luck to you all. The late news has been crazy, so I hope we can navigate it efficiently. But I think we did a good job. I appreciate y'all being here. It's a pleasure to do this for you. So thank you, everyone.
As always, thank you. If you have more, looks like this guy might not be starting again. We're going to have to figure that out. It seems like I could see all of them. If you have more questions, at Matt_Gajewski, at Jazzraz DFS. Thanks to Mike behind the glass. Thanks to all you guys for being part of the Stokastic family here. Good luck. Enjoy. And we will talk to you guys next week. Same time, same place.